fellow travelers, welcome to the 51st level of the RPG Cave. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Turford, the level 99 human archmage, and I'm joined apparently by two elf medics this week, level 99, Mr. Garret Bland. Garret, how are you doing today? Apparently showing himself in the camera. What's going on there?
That was very spontaneous. So for the listeners out there, I held up my Retroid Pocket, and then the reflection went into the camera, which went back to the reflection of the Retroid Pocket, and it just went back and forth. So yeah, you just saw a lot of me. But anyways, I've been loving this little system.
I can't imagine why.
Playing that, yeah, it's been playing that Golden Sun.
Yeah,
it's been good. It's been pretty good. So. Anyways, yeah. How about you, man? How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I mean, the weather is just, nice outside. It was raining earlier, but now it's not. Also, I love the fact too that if I divert, when you ask how I'm feeling from feelings to the weather, you usually don't, make fun of me or call me a weatherman about it, unlike a certain other co-host that I have.
I think about the weather too sometimes, but here in San Francisco, we got the most bland weather.
Yeah.
It's great. It's like
it never changes. It's like fall.
It never changes.
Yeah.
It's literally mild like 24/7, and there's no snow. It's actually much different than the Northeast. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can't relate my feelings to the weather anymore.
Yeah,
because of it though.
That's true. Whereas it was snowing here a month ago, and then now it's like 90 degrees outside.
That sounds like North Texas. Wow, so dynamic.
I know, exactly. It's just all over the place. But I'm glad that you talked about Golden Sun, because I'm glad that you brought that up, because of course Garrett's playing Golden Sun. I'm so excited to talk to Garret about Golden Sun in the next couple months. Anyways, we'll have to settle down and talk more about that. But Garret,
sure,
it's that time of year by how I pointed out what the weather's like, because it's summertime. So of course summer comes quote unquote E3. We're calling it E3 still, even though E3 is apparently dead. Apparently it's Summer Game Fest now, but we're calling it E3. So today is all about quote unquote E3 predictions in the world of RPGs.
Stop butterflies.
But before we get into all that, let's clear the dungeon of the pesky mob. So folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of awesome ways to do that. Number one, you can like us and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching the live stream right now. And if you haven't subscribed already, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, ding, 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 ring that bell to be notified whenever we have a new live stream or whenever our new videos go live. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to hit that subscribe button there as well. Maybe leave us a rating if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Again, all that stuff helps the show get discovered. Also, if you want early access to all of our shows as well, some Patreon exclusive content, and we've got about 4 or 5 Patreon exclusive podcasts a month going up starting this month, which is pretty awesome. Head over to Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming is how you do that. Throw a little tip in the old tip jar and out comes content. Also, if you're watching the live stream right now and you want this RPG Cave shirt, like I know Garrett's actually got his in the mail coming soon, you can head on over to our merch store. So we got a link to our merch store in the description of the video or in the comment section. And last but not least, I didn't put this on the document, but I'm going to probably promote this all week. This weekend, Sean Capri, Court Lalonde, and I will be in Toronto, Ontario, Canada for Xbox Fan Fest. But on Saturday of this week, we're having kind of like almost like a carpool gaming meet and greet at like a arcade bar and at a burger place. So if you're in Toronto this weekend on Saturday, please reach out to Sean Capri at Sean Capri on Twitter or on the Discord. He will give you all the details, as well as to make sure you're kind of on the list of people to come hang out with us, and so you get all those deets. It sounds like we got a lot of people coming out to this thing, Garret, way more than I was thinking originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you haven't told us already that you're coming, please let Sean know if you're in the area on Saturday.
It's gonna be a party and without me.
It's gonna be really fun. I'm sorry, Garret. Whenever you want to come to Toronto,
it's too expensive, man.
I know.
These flights, they're just being the West Coast. That's one of the downfalls. Is like, hey, I want to visit. It's just like, no, it's gonna be an obscene amount of money to go to the other side. I'm like, okay, sounds good.
It's just one of those things, Garret. What's gonna eventually happen is when E3 eventually comes back next year in person, Sean and I will fly to LA for E3, and then you just have to fly to LA to come hang out with us. That's all you got to do.
That or drive. Man, it's that close.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. It'll all work out. But enough about all that. It's time to read from the sacred texts, because it's time, Garret. I'm very excited about this.
Let's do it.
E3 2022 RPG predictions. Now, we're actually recording this obviously after the State of Play that happened last week. Although after we saw the State of Play, I'm actually kind of glad we waited on this one because there was only like one RPG that was there. So I'm glad that our predictions don't really kind of feed into that a little bit. But I kind of want to save talking about that particular RPG for next week's show because this week we're doing predictions, and next week we're going to be talking about all the news that we're going to be hearing from all the different conferences, whether it's Summer Game Fest, Xbox Showcase. If there's a Nintendo Direct, we'll talk about that. Likewise, if there's anything at the Devolver Showcase, that's an RPG, we'll talk about that. If there's any RPGs at the Sonic Connect, Garrett, we'll talk about that, over there. And if there's anything over at the Capcom thing that they just announced this afternoon too, we'll talk about that too. So, lots and lots to look forward to. Again, even though people keep saying E3 is dead, like this week just feels like E3 to me all over again.
We're dragging the corpse of the E3 spirit, and we're showing the new spirit of what we have left in this week and next week.
I mean, the only thing we have left, like I mentioned, is Nintendo. That's it. If there's a Nintendo Direct on Tuesday, like that's it. That's just E3 again.
We got our foundation. We got the base of E3.
Exactly. So, although we don't have Ubisoft this year, they already confirmed they're not doing a summer showcase. But beyond,
I'm kind of glad that they are holding off on what they're showing. If they don't have anything to show, then don't show it. And I'm glad Ubisoft made that decision.
No, and I think they probably only have one game really to talk about this year, maybe two.
Yeah.
And then we're going to probably talk about one of them today. So I mean.
Yeah,
we'll save that talk for later, but especially after what happened with Prince of Persia 2, which doesn't sound like it's coming until like the end of like 2023, if not 2024 at this point. So yeah, all kinds of stuff going on at Ubisoft. So Garrett and I each prepared 5 predictions, and we're gonna kind of go through them here. We're also going to talk about afterwards kind of some notable games that maybe we didn't touch on in some of our predictions to ask the questions: are we going to kind of see these games over the next week or so, and we'll go from there. Also, I pulled the community as well, so we're going to have the community kind of involved with some of your picks as well. So thank you to everyone who submitted your predictions there as well. And also, quick programming note for next week. We will most likely not be at our normal time next week if there's a Nintendo Direct. Because if there's a Nintendo Direct next Tuesday, we'll probably record Tuesday night instead of Monday night because we want to talk about Nintendo Direct. We can't, do the RPG news next week and then not talk about the Nintendo Direct. So if you don't see us go live on Monday, it's because the Nintendo Direct is on Tuesday next week. So just FYI for the kids out there. But enough about that, Garrett. We're gonna kind of we're not gonna do kind of the other carpool gaming kind of stuff. We're gonna do closer to kind of the yay or nay kind of system they have on the PlayStation Drive, where we're essentially gonna assign points to how close these predictions are, Garrett, and we'll see how granular we can get with some of these. So,
sounds good.
As the doctor, Garrett, would you like to go first or second?
Sure. I will start off. I will go first. And when you mean by breakdown of points, is this like a sum of 1 point for a prediction, and we're gonna kind of break it down piece by piece?
Sum of 1 point. You can't get get bonus points, Garrett.
Can't get bonus points off of this. Okay. All right. So this one, I actually changed it up by the last second, right before we went live today, and I think this game has been leaked for quite some time, so it's not going to be actually that surprising if we see it, especially in the Capcom showcase. I think Dragon's Dogma 2, the sequel to Dragon's Dogma 1 in 2012 or 2013 or somewhere around there, will get announced. And I think actually it'll get announced at the Summer Games Fest.
Yep.
And then will be revealed more in depth in gameplay over the Capcom showcase next week. Because what they really emphasized in the Capcom is like, hey, we're going to go more in depth into our announced titles. So I was like, okay, I'm thinking they're going to do some type of reveal. I don't think it won't be at the Xbox showcase just because I don't think it's like a Game Pass game. They haven't really done any kind of Game Pass other than Monster Hunter.
Although
I don't think
I will say last year's E3, for example, with Xbox, there were games that were still there that weren't on Game Pass, like Battlefield, for example.
Yeah.
So just keep in mind
that's true.
That they will have probably at least 2 or 3 third-party games at the Xbox showcase that are not Game Pass focus. So there is still a
Mhm.
possibility it shows up there. But I actually kind of agree with you, Garrett. I'm actually thinking if they're going to show it, it'll be at Summer Game Fest, I think.
Yeah,
And not on
Summer Games
Xbox.
Fest. I'm imagining these platforms, since it's been leaked that it should have been out like this year. I think it's going to be current gen and last gen consoles,
Hmm.
PC, and I think they're going to say Switch. But what they actually mean is we're gonna release it later via cloud streaming.
Of course.
I think that's exactly what they meant.
I love how you didn't even need to finish that sentence, and I already knew where you're going with it because they do that every time. But it's Capcom. They love the cloud stuff. So
Capcom.
they're going to do that. In fact, one of the predictions that I forgot to mention, actually, I wasn't part of Nintendo Drive this year for predictions, but one of my predictions would have been Resident Evil 2 and 3 come to cloud streaming because I think Capcom's going to
Goodness.
do something like going to have like a bunch of cloud games probably this year for Nintendo.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
Dragon's
for
Dogma
sure.
2 is actually one. And believe it or not, Garrett, Dragon's Dogma 2 was
Yes.
actually on my list, and I wanted to throw my prediction, which was Dragon's Dogma 2 is real. It's coming out in October, is what I said. I gave a
Oh, I
month.
say spring 2023.
Oh,
That's what they're gonna, and that's their release time frame. I don't think they have a date for
Yeah.
the fall.
but that's where we differ. I think this game's coming out this year, but that's
All
just me.
right.
Because I mean, with the spring, that you've also got the recently announced Resident Evil 4 remake from Capcom in there.
That's true.
As well as some other stuff. So I think they kind of want to have it out this fall if they can get it there. But I mean, who knows with delays in the way game development is
Yeah.
now. But I mean, I was also the person saying Final Fantasy 16 probably could come out this year, and I was proven very wrong. Like earlier this week, so you never know. But yes, I think we're both in agreement. Dragon's Dogma for sure will be at the showcase,
Yes.
like at a showcase, and I think both of us agreed Summer Game Fest. Even though Jeff Keighley did an interview, I think it was with VGC, I believe, talking about what to expect at the showcase, and he was talking about how Summer Game Fest is mostly just going to focus on games we already know about as well. Kind of like what Capcom said for their
Yeah.
showcase as well. He said there'd be some new game announcements, but it would be mostly updates on games we already know about. Which
Yeah.
is weird
Yeah.
to me because I was going through my calendar of games we already know about for the fall, Garrett. There's not much that's there.
Not
So-
too much.
So
Yeah.
it's just like, well, what games are you focusing on? Like, what's coming out this year, essentially, right? So, like, I was kind of hoping that Summer Game Fest was going to be like this big showcase for like all the stuff that all the
Like the
new
big
announcements
third
for games
party
that we
showcase kind of deal.
Yeah.
You know.
or games that are coming
Um,
this year to kind of fill in the calendar almost. Like that's what I was kind of hoping from it, but
Yeah, Summer Games Fest is a little weird because, Jeff Keighley wants it to be the prized possession of like, hey, this is the spiritual successor of E3. This is our show. This is my show. And this is what we're going to announce. And then it's like, great, you're going to have this, this, and that. And it's like, whoa, wait. We're going to have ads and we're going to have in-depth discussion of already announced games. I'm like,
oh,
Okay,
don't forget the debut of a new song by Muse will happen during the showcase as well, Garrett.
oh no, please.
It's already been
Muse
confirmed.
from
It's already been
2000.
confirmed. We know
Oh,
it's a
no.
thing because actually one thing that Jeff talked about in the thing. First of all, he said that wouldn't be the only musical performance. Number two, it's actually going to be Summer Game Fest is not a taped show. It's a live show from LA, I think.
LA. Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
And he said basically the show will be like anywhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours. Just depends on how long the live performances go on, he said. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Doing
at the
this
showcase.
during the day
Yeah.
on Thursday randomly. Like it's not even like a weird time zone thing. It's like in the US and Canada, it's during the work day. We don't have time for that. Like at all. I don't know what he's thinking.
I mean, that
about
never
but
stopped
maybe it's just-
Nintendo from, doing their thing, Tuesday mornings or whatever, right?
That's true. That's true.
Well,
Anyways.
At least Xbox does their thing on the weekend. So it almost doesn't matter what time.
Yes, on a Sunday. Thank you, Xbox.
But yeah, Summer Game Fest, it's going to be a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
again, we're talking so much about Summer Game Fest here too, because to be honest, Garrett, I don't know how many RPG announcements we're even going to get from Summer Game Fest. Like Dragon's Dogma 2
I don't
might be
think
the
much,
only
man.
one. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I agree with you.
Anyways, moving on to my first prediction, Garrett. Now that you've, by the way, that's one prediction out of the way. We're already 20 minutes into the
Okay,
show.
so how are we breaking it down? Like, is it like 0.5 of a point if I get the release time frame, right? Like spring 2023.
Yeah, because I mean, you made your full
Okay,
prediction basically. Dragon's Dogma 2 is getting announced, and there's the release window. You made that all part of your prediction, correct, Garrett?
cool.
So,
Sounds good.
so
Yes.
therefore, to get the full point, all of that has to be correct. Otherwise, you get half a point if Dragon's Dogma 2 is announced, and then another half if the release window happens. So
That sounds good to me.
yeah. All right. As for me, I'm getting this one out of the way right now because everyone knows I'm going to predict this. I've been predicting it on the Xbox Drive for 3 years now because I keep expecting it to happen and it just doesn't happen yet. But this is the year, Garrett. This is finally the year that Final Fantasy VII Remake finally comes to Xbox
Oh, okay.
and PC.
Okay.
So it's coming to Xbox and PC this August, and it will be a day one Game Pass game. They will announce this not during the Xbox showcase. They will announce this during the Xbox pre-show. So it'll be a pre-show announcement because they did the same thing or similar thing when Dragon Quest XI S came to Xbox, where they announced it during kind of like the pre-show. And they're like, hey, by the way, it's coming and it's going to be on Game Pass day one. Here's the date kind of thing. That's what I'm expecting here. Basically, it'll show up in August. Okay. And there was reasons why I specifically say August. You'll figure out as I go through kind of my Square Enix specific predictions as to like the roadmap I have mapped on my brain for what Square Enix is going to announce in the release dates for them. But it's definitely, I think, my safest prediction because I think like we had that extension of the exclusivity window from Sony when Integrate came out, but it'll basically by the time July rolls around, it'll have been a year by the time Integrate rolls around, which is when that exclusivity should be over. So at that point, that should allow it to come to Xbox in August and PC.
We'll see. Okay, just one slight correction. Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's on Epic, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it'll come to Steam
as well as the Windows Xbox.
Stores. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It'll come to everything on PC, not just like it won't be just exclusive to Epic, essentially.
Got it. I understand now. All right. Well, I think that could happen. That very much well could not happen.
Yeah.
Sony could very well refresh that contract, make it stuck it to the console.
Oh, come on, just give me my 2.5 points for at least guessing that Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming and getting the rest of it wrong. Just let me die in dignity, Garrett. Please. I needed this game on Xbox. Why is it not there yet? It makes me sad.
I don't know. It's been a while, dude. It's been too. I mean, like it came out in 2019 or 2020, right? So
yeah, 2020.
Beginning of 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that. I have it on PS5, so I need to get back into it. But you know my thing. I need to go back to the. This is what happens in my head. Remake, and then I'm like, oh wait, I have to do the classic on Switch. Oh wait, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Right. Yeah. That's the game.
I was gonna say you've already got your mission for the next 2 months. You got Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and you got Golden Sun. That's it. No other games matter.
It's my focus right now. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Okay, so number 2 prediction. Split off half points.
Okay.
Okay, so 0.5 of a point. Persona will not be mentioned at all in the Summer Games Fest or the Xbox Showcase. You know what? I'll make that 0.25 a point. It's a little small. I think that's a gimme. The 0.75 of a point is if the direct occurs, if there's a direct that gets announced, Persona 4 Golden will be ported over and released like that day. It's like, hey, here's Persona 4 Golden on the Switch. Here's your 1-minute trailer. Here you go. It's on the store now. Shadow drop, right then and there.
Boom.
So I think the Persona and Xbox, I know people are really wanting it. I just don't think Atlas has any kind of business sense of ever going to the Xbox platform with Persona franchise, and goody with the PlayStation and now PC. I can just definitely see Persona 4 being ported over just from the PC port that just happened last year. And also we have Soul Hackers 2 that's coming up in August. I don't think they want any kind of Persona franchise to kind of like distract from that game. And Soul Hackers 2 is coming to Xbox and coming to PlayStation and PC. So I was like, okay, Switch needs something. I think Persona 4 Golden will be it. So that's my prediction for the Persona and fresh announcements in
Very
the
nice. I mean,
E3
one of
this
the
year.
two of us had to talk about Persona and bring this up.
Of course.
First of all, I want to bring in the Muffin Mon over on Discord, Kevin Ainsworth.
Oh dang.
He says, I have to believe we are getting some sort of Persona news, whether it's Persona 5 Row coming to Xbox, Persona 4 Golden getting ported to Switch/Xbox, or even Persona 6 getting announced. Those were all the things that Kevin Ainsworth would love to see. I mean, Persona 6, I think they're going to save that because I think they're going to announce it the same way they announced Persona 5, where they're just going to announce it at like the Persona concert that's happening later this year, which coincides with the final like month of that, 1 year schedule that they laid out last year talking about that. Because I think we both talked about it before when they announced that, like, I'm pretty sure like the last announcement they have for that is Persona 6 is happening essentially. And that's like the color and probably like a theme or something along with it, kind of like they did with Persona 5. So, but that'll happen like at the end of the year. That's not going to happen here, I don't think. But I actually was in a similar vein to you where I also thought it was going to get announced during the Nintendo Switch event. I'm not expecting it in the Xbox event because of course, with the re-release of Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, which was originally on Xbox, the fact that that didn't come to Xbox clearly tells me they don't care about Persona on Xbox. So
Exactly.
what my prediction was, just to throw it out there, was Persona 3 and 4 get a double pack for Switch and PS4. It's coming in August. Persona 3 also comes to PC because we already have Persona 4 on PC.
Okay.
So, and then they get a Steam bundle essentially that you can buy them both together if you want, if you don't have them already. But that's my side of the prediction, where I actually think they're going to do Persona 3 and Persona 4 at the same time. I'm a little ambitious
That would
with
be
this one,
great.
Garrett, but I think that that's the direction I would love to see them go in, and the one I expect them to go in, because I assume I'm right about things sometimes.
Well, we'll see about the Persona 3. I'm full support with you. I would love to see Persona 3 getting into the current gen consoles. I think it's the one Persona game that a lot of the like me, like a lot of the fans haven't really delved into just because it's just locked behind
Yeah.
either the PS Vita or PS3 platforms. And there's not really like, I mean, there's a better version, but there's not like we really need like a culmination of the two versions
We don't have
together.
the perfect version of Persona 3, essentially.
We don't have the perfect version of Persona 3. So I think they can do some work and release it on PS4, PS5, and PC and just be good. Call it a day.
Because likewise, they'll put more work into that one, and then Persona 4 will. I see that just, you're right, just being like a port of the PC version, essentially, and just calling it a day kind of thing. Because like all that works there. So that's a good prediction. Again, we had to talk about Persona eventually, so I'm glad that you brought it up before I jumped in here. Well, Garrett, there were two games that we had announcements for earlier this year at a PlayStation State of Play that weren't at this State of Play, but I'm thinking we might see them, and this is my only other thing from Summer Game Fest. We might see these games at Summer Game Fest, which is, I expect we get release dates for the Geofold Chronicle and Valkyrie Elysium.
Oh gosh,
coming later this year, because we know they were both dated for fall 2022, but we just haven't really heard anything about them since. So the Geofold Chronicle, I think, will come out this October, while Valkyrie Elysium arrives this December. The reason again, as you're probably starting to see me putting the blocks together here, I think that by Square doing this, essentially, they basically have a game coming out pretty much every month, because that would put Final Fantasy VII Remake in August, then Forspoken in September, and then October would be Geofold Chronicle, and then December would be Valkyrie Elysium, and my November one is yet to come. I haven't said it yet.
Oh, dang.
But there you go. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. Again, I could be more nitty gritty and give you exact release dates, but I'm bold enough, I think, saying those two games are actually going to show up at all, let alone get some kind of release dates. But I mean, Square tends to have at least something at Summer Game Fest, and Keeley's already talked about it being almost all games that we already know about, and we know these games are coming this year, and we know Square Enix wants to show them. So unless Square's doing their own showcase that we don't know about yet, which is also a possibility, because they usually do one every year too, we will see these games before E3 week is out, and they will get a release date, whether it's at Summer Game Fest or if Square Enix does their own thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Those are some good predictions. I mean, I think they're still bold predictions of saying one is October, one's in December.
Mm,
I think, these, I don't know what I thought about these games when I initially, like, they got announced in the state of play. I was just like, to me, it was like, oh, that's another JRPG template. Okay, let's put another old franchise in. Okay, it's action-based combat in weird type of game. Okay, there we go. It just seemed like a lot of culmination of ideas together, and it's like, all right, Square Enix, like, all right, let's just pull something together. Let's put in a JRPG number 27.
mm.
I just didn't think it was that. At least for me, it wasn't. It didn't feel special much at all. We barely saw any gameplay of the what was it, the Divefield Chronicle
Yeah. We
game.
know it's a weird
I
tactics game. That's all we know. It's like a real time strategy game that also
Yeah, it
pauses.
kind of looks like triangle strategy in a way, but it's not really. And I think that one, out of the two, would likely be delayed.
Mm,
And I think that would be fine to do. I just don't want Square Enix to like just chug out these
yeah.
games like they're nothing. But yeah, interesting predictions. I'm interested to see how these two specifically go with Square Enix because I'm sure it was a lower cost operations cost to do. So I'm sure they're not expecting too high of a sales, hopefully, out of these games
Mhm.
compared to their other games. But yeah, it's we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Some good
at the very
predictions
least,
there.
I think one of the two of them is coming out. And I mean,
Hmm.
if Square Enix is honest to their word and they're both coming out this year, that'll be a packed fall for, Square Enix games just in general. But I truly think that they are, at the very least, one of the two of these comes out for sure, if not both of them. And I think of the two, I'm banking more on Valkyrie Elysium coming out of the two. I'm pretty sure that one's
Yes,
probably the farthest along of the two of them, especially from what
I
they
agree.
showed us in the trailer. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, that's pretty good, man. All right. Prediction numero trace. I think this would be a shocker if this is an actual announcement. So this is one or nothing, I think. Um, we see the logo in the Xbox showcase. And it's not, I don't know if it's going to be the one more thing. I'll say this is going to be in the middle of the show, of the showcase. And you just hear clashing of swords and spears. And then you hear some atmosphere and ambience together, some voice acting. And then you just see a logo streak just straight across Lost Odyssey 2,
ooh,
the sequel to the first one. I think um I don't know if Mistwalker, which was the one of the studios that collaborated
yeah.
into the making of the game, um could be involved. They're just making a mobile game right now, Fantasian. I'm sure they're doing just fine with that, but I'm sure Microsoft could go back into the well and it's like, hey, we need to fill in this space kind of. And this is, I feel like Lost Odyssey is like kind of a lost darling of a
Mhm.
JRPG and kind of and not stranded, but it's in that 360 era that no one seems to remember. That's like, hey, that's an actually good JRPG. So I think this game will just be announced. I don't think there's going to be any kind of release date.
Mhm.
It's just going to be like, hey, the sequel to Lost Odyssey, here you go. Here's the logo. It'll it's in development, and that's it. I think that's what's going to happen. So,
Nice.
what do you
That
think, Brian?
I mean that's if we were doing like odds, Garrett, I'd be giving you a straight 10 on that one because
Yes,
I don't think that's likely at all. It would be awesome, but it's
it would
probably
be
very
awesome.
unlikely. But I mean, we with Miss Walker, I mean, the thing about them is even though they are still around, they're kind of like a shell of what they used to be. Like there's not
Okay.
the same leadership there and stuff like that. Like if they were ever going
Hmm.
to do a Lost Odyssey 2, they would have to contract, you know, some of the
To
people
other
that worked on the first
studios.
one, or
Yeah.
yeah, just like get a new studio just in general to work on that. And I don't know who Microsoft gets in Japan to
Yeah,
work
they
on a
would.
lot
Well,
of
I
things
don't.
too. So I think that's the tricky part about
Yeah, I
that.
don't know if it'll be in Japan specifically or contract just somewhere else, but
Yeah.
I'm sure Phil Spencer's looking at that franchise like, hey, we got something now. We just need a studio to work on it that would fit. And I think they could just really pull it off, have it day one Game Pass, and you got a really good, another role JRPG in their arsenal. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're
absolutely.
right. It's
That
probably not going to happen.
probably not, but we can dare to dream on this show, Garrett.
We
We
could
can
dare
dare
to
to
dream.
dream.
Yes.
Yes. All right. As for me, I'm gonna be bold with this one, Garrett. So we
Oh,
hear a
dang.
clashing of swords during the Xbox conference. It's a black screen. Then all of a sudden it's in first person and there's dragons and stuff, and there's all kinds of magic and stuff because Avowed is on the screen right now. And Avowed
Yes.
is getting a release date, April 2023. Avowed comes out. So it won't be an exact release
Okay.
date. It'll just be the month and next year. But Avowed from Obsidian is getting a release date, April 2023. That's my prediction.
April 2023. That's very specific. I like it. I am very, very excited for this one. I think it's one of my most anticipated games coming out of the Xbox studios. I also had that as an extra prediction. I think Avowed will be shown off in the Xbox showcase. I think in-depth gameplay is I think that's in line
Mhm.
for this year. I think we'll have at least maybe a couple minutes or so of a demo just walking through what is the Avowed gameplay and what I really want to know what sets it kind of apart from Skyrim. And
Mhm.
I know it's in the Pillars universe, so I'm sure there's a little bit of different things than what we see in Tamriel and Skyrim. But yeah, I don't know if it'll get a release date. April 2023 is bold. I think I will say at this point, I don't want a month. I just wait. I actually don't want a release date. Like
Yeah.
I don't give me 2023. Don't give me any because 2023 is so general. Like I don't want
Right.
to even a year at that point. So I just say they'll just have a gameplay. And it's like, hey, here's an in-depth demo. Can't wait to show you more
Mhm.
later this year or something like that.
Yeah.
And there
Because
you
I
go.
think like what was probably the case was it was probably always the plan for Avowed to come out early next year with Starfield coming out
Hmm.
this fall, and maybe shifts things around with Microsoft. Like maybe Avowed comes
Yeah.
out later that year, next year, because Starfield needs to slot in there somewhere. But I'm still in the camp that even though Starfield got delayed to 2023, I'm still in the camp that that's maybe a January or February game at this point, which
Mm,
still probably gives enough time for Avowed to come out in April or May or something like that. Which is why, like,
mhm.
I feel bold enough with this prediction that like it's definitely plausible when I think about it, especially because like if you wouldn't have told me that Starfield was getting delayed, I would have for sure said like this is the window I think like this game's coming out in is April or May
Mm.
of next year. Especially because
Cool.
I think we're also getting, hopefully anyways, I think that's where we're getting maybe another one of the IPs from Microsoft in the fall. Like that'll be their big fall game, whether that's Perfect Dark or whatever else they're gonna kind of announce over the weekend, anyways. With release or
Mhm.
Hellblade, something like that. Maybe that's their new big fall game next year. But I don't think like Avowed was ever supposed to be their big fall game of next year. I feel like that's probably like a summer game for them. Whether that and summer for me, of course, just
Mhm.
begins in April, Garrett, because I live in Canada. So that's what we're going with. So April is when
Nice.
I think Avowed's coming out, and I'm sticking to it.
Cool.
And I'm expecting no points on this one, but I had to throw it out there anyways.
I will be very excited if that
I'm
happens.
just excited
Oh
to see
man,
this game. Like I'm
me
just
too,
excited to see more. So there you go.
for sure. Okay, prediction number four. I think this one's kind of a low ball. If the direct happens, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope will be showcased extensively. I think it will be probably a major part of Nintendo Direct if it gets announced and comes out
Mhm.
next week. I think it's gonna try to show off what's different and separate from the first game, and so probably the new characters, kind of new areas and obstacles, and I just want to see some form of novelty inside the mechanics other than just straight up XCOM like combat. I want to see a little bit more
Mhm.
than that this time around. So yeah, and I think they're gonna show not an exact release date. Well, actually, Ubisoft loves to do that. So
They
if
really
I had
do.
a date on me, I would. But it'll be specifically in February 2023. I think it'll be
Ooh.
delayed a little bit more than the 2022 previously announcement. I think it's gonna miss the mark just by a little bit.
Oh,
Early
you're in
next
the
year.
camp where you don't think this is game's coming out this year, unlike Sean Capri and myself. I think we're both kind of in the camp that I think like this is one of Nintendo's big games this fall. I don't think it misses this year unless it has to, like unless there's some kind of
Yeah.
development trouble. That's just how I'm looking at it,
Well,
anyways.
Ubisoft just has such a lack of confidence in their IP and their games all around, and just not seeing this game for the longest time. And I know this is the time, this is it. Like
Mhm.
they need to show it off and it will be announced and released in the fall. That would be great. I think though, because of not much information between now and before, it's like I think it's going to be just delayed by a little bit. I think they just need a little bit more polish and they can release it on Switch.
Well,
And
I would
yeah,
like Garrett to know that I also had Mario plus Rabbids down as like an extra prediction because I knew Garrett was gonna, of course, say something about Mario plus
yes,
Rabbids. But mine, I'm like on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where I said Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope gets an August release date, which is the same month the first game came
August.
out in. Because if you remember what happened with
Wow.
Mario plus Rabbids the first time, we didn't know about it. It was announced at E3 and it was out that August. So
That's true.
I
I
think
remember that.
I think they're gonna try and pull the same playbook again this time if they can. So I'm gonna say August this time is what I had.
Oh,
I'm more surprised that no one in our community guessed Mario plus Rabbids was going to be a thing or had anything to say about it. Because I look back, I was like, I swear we had a question about this. I'm like, nope, nope, we're still off the
well,
board.
I mean, there's a lot of buzz around it, but there honestly hasn't been any information since the last time Ubisoft did something or
Mm.
Nintendo did something last year. And it's just like, this game is just I wouldn't say the marketing, but the buzz around it's been really low key. So if they want to announce it and release it in August, they better pull it together with a direct that's coming in next week then if it comes. I'm
Again, this
saying
is
this
me.
anticipating a direct.
Yeah, same. Again, I'm making this prediction assuming there's a direct on Tuesday or at the very least
Yeah.
Thursday because we have evidence of certain things pointing to certain Switch games that are going to shadow drop next week. That it would be
Yeah.
weird if there wasn't a direct next week about that. That I'm not going to spoil here because I don't want to, because I know how some people feel about,
Yeah.
game announcement spoilers. So I won't say that here, but I'm gonna move on then. Give you my fourth prediction, and Garrett, I think it's time for me to start breaking out my really out there predictions. And
Oh no.
this one I'm very proud I came up with myself, by the way. So during the Nintendo Direct that I assume is happening on Tuesday, Gung Ho Games will officially announce a collection. Gung Ho Games, by the
Okay.
way, are the company that did the Grandia remaster, but they're currently
Yes.
the IP owners of the Lunar franchise. So I am predicting they announce a Lunar HD collection that's similar to their Grandia HD collection that came out, I think, a year and a half, 2 years ago on Switch. That will
Hmm.
feature Lunar 1 and 2 complete, the PlayStation 1 versions, just like they did with Grandia 1 and 2. And it will launch later this year, is what I'm saying.
Cool.
So
That's awesome.
I'm like, this is a pie in the sky one for me. This is one that I'm like, I want to buy this. Please, if I say it, if I voice it out there in the podcast world, maybe will this into existence, Garrett, somehow. If I just
Hmm.
keep,
Hmm.
putting that idea out there, that it's a good idea, it would be awesome. I'm actually surprised they didn't have this happen already, but this isn't also like, I'm not just pulling this from nowhere either, because they've been putting out surveys. Gung Ho have been pretty recently about what games people want
Hmm.
remasters of or re-releases of, and Lunar has been constantly on that list. It's been near the top of that list for a while, like over the last year and a half of them doing surveys. So I think if it doesn't happen now, it will be an eventuality that happens at some point. They will,
Hmm.
bring the Lunar games back from Game Arts at some point. We just don't know when at this point. So that's my prediction. I think a Lunar collection it will be announced this year during the Nintendo Direct. And yes, I'm totally
Oh,
crazy.
during the Nintendo Direct. Interesting.
Yeah,
So
because
the
this will be a
Grandia,
Switch and PC game essentially.
yeah, it will be a Switch and PC. So I can, that could be a Summer Games Fest if they wanted it to be. But yeah, a Direct makes more sense. Um, okay, so the Lunar what do they do? Gung Ho? What are they doing other than the Grandia HD collection? What are they
They basically are
contracting?
they're kind of like a smaller company, kind of like Embracer Group, where they buy up a lot of older
Okay.
IPs, and then they do re-releases of them. That's kind of their thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just the
Well,
Grandia collection
Lunar
was like
would be
the
great.
last collection that they put out of
Mm,
RPGs specifically because they've done other genres as well.
cool.
So that's why I'm like I put two and two together on this one and just throwing that into the ether and hoping it exists.
Well, I mean, it's believable. If they are the IP owners and it's been a while and they've done the same thing for Grandia, why not Lunar
Yeah,
as well?
especially because they know people
Cool,
will
man.
love those games, and it's like of
Yeah.
all the properties that Gung Ho currently owns, like Lunar and Grandia are the two most popular RPG ones that they have. So it just
Oh,
makes
okay.
dollar sense. Like people will buy the Lunar games again. So there's
Cool.
there you go. So that's number 4. Garrett, final prediction. Hit me with it.
My final prediction is my dream prediction. I
Ooh.
want this so badly. I don't know if it, I honestly probably won't ever happen, but I'm gonna say it. And I actually I stole this idea from another Xbox podcast, but I want to go with it too and fully support it. Fallout 3 in New Vegas is gonna have a remastered collection. It's gonna be fully repackaged, new textures. It's gonna get the full treatment. And I think um, I don't know if it will be a double pack. I think what's going to happen is Fallout 3 will come out first later this year as a remastered.
Mhm.
And then Fallout New Vegas will be early 2023. I think that's my prediction. I think it's going to be headed by one of Bethesda Games software studios. They have many studios around. I can imagine the people who did Fallout 76 do it. I just think the Fallout franchise is in a little bit of a lost right now, especially with 76. I did not really get into it. I know there's a niche group that
Mhm.
really got into it, and there's a lot of support around it. I'm surprised how much support has been going on for that game for the longest time. But at least for me, after Fallout 4 and going through the DLC, I'm just like, all right, this is it. And I don't see any other new Fallout game in sight. I could have pitched, hey, there's gonna be a new Fallout game coming from Obsidian. It's like, no, that's
Nope.
not gonna happen. Obsidian has like 4 games in development. Like they got their hands full. And I don't think any other Xbox studio would like to take the helm just yet for a Fallout franchise. So maybe some mind share of some Fallout remastered games would be great. And I think 3 in New Vegas would be a good start. Especially with 4. I think 4 already had a 60 frames patch
Yeah.
or something like that on
Well, it
paper.
actually
So
it
yeah,
got a 60 frames patch, and then it got 1x enhancements, and then it got
yeah,
some Series X enhancements too. But it's not like a fully Series X enabled game or whatever. But it did
yeah,
get a lot of enhancements. But then, so how far do you think they go with this remaster? Because we already got because the additions they did to New Vegas and 3 on 1X and
yeah.
Series X are quite sizable to the point where like if they would have sold that as a remake, it probably would have been on the same level as like any other HD remaster we've get of games. So I'm curious how far you really feel they're gonna really push these two remasters if they put them out, Garrett.
Oh, it would be much of a step further than what they've done. Like I played the New Vegas in 3 recently throughout the Series X, and it's fine. It's a good, nice skinned up HD 4K with some 60 frames. Like it looks great, but they could just do a full reskin, a full retexture of it, just
Mm,
like what they did with the Skyrim Special Edition with Skyrim and Xbox 360 days. Like they could do a full on just reskin of that and then full texture lighting, maybe some I wouldn't say like ray tracing effects, but like a lot of that kind of graphical fidelity effects on there. I don't think they're going to add new content in there per se.
mhm.
But I think they'll put in the full treatment like they did with Skyrim Special Edition.
Yeah,
That's my prediction.
nice. Well, then, Garrett, I have one other question for you before I move on.
Yeah.
Will the glitch with the cowboy hat still be in New Vegas with this new remake? Like if you
It's actually going to be a secret achievement that's going to be worth 1G.
where you put the
So
cowboy hat on and then if you take it off, it breaks the game, but at least you get an achievement for your troubles.
it's
Essentially.
like, well, it's called the glitch, and it's just 1G, and it's just a little secret achievement. I
And then
would
the
love
picture
that
is just
actually.
of the cowboy hat.
Yeah, of the cowboy hat itself. Yes.
Excellent. I'm glad we're on the same page with this one. All right.
Oh, that would be lovely.
Well, with my final prediction, Garrett, I've got like three really out there predictions to go with, and I'm like, which one do I want to pick as my official one?
All right.
And I think I'll go with this one. I'll tell you what the other two are
Okay.
afterwards. But my official prediction, my final one, very out there. But stick with me. During the Nintendo Direct, again, we're piling a lot of this on Nintendo Direct because Nintendo Direct just happens a lot of RPGs. Which makes sense.
Thinking about it.
During
Yeah.
the Nintendo Direct, Square Enix will be crazy because they will unveil a sequel to Trials of Mana. It's coming out next April. So Trials of Mana was so popular because it sold really well, like way more than they were expecting it to sell. And that we know it's been like 3 years since that last one came out. And we have no idea, that team that worked on it hasn't worked on it, released anything else. I think they're working on a Mana game of some kind. And I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring and say they're going to actually do an original game that's a sequel to Trials of Mana. In the same universe, maybe, and some of the same characters will win it, but you'll play as different characters, but the gameplay will be the same as Trials of Mana, the first one, but with a new set of characters to go with.
Okay.
April 2023 is what I'm saying for that one. Yes, I know Final Fantasy 16 is technically in that same window, but I don't care. It's Trials of Mana, okay? I mean, they released the first one around when 7 Remake came out, and they didn't bother that game. So, yes, Trials of Mana will be at the Switch Showcase with a sequel, April 2023. It's really out there, but it's something just like you, Garrett. That's something I would love to see because I love the Mana series. We talked about it on the Mana episode, on like the 10th episode of the RPG Cave a long time ago. And I love Trials of Mana. It was one of my favorite games of the year it came out. And I really hope that the team that did that, I mean, I think they did an awesome job with the combat and the visual style and everything about that game. So I would love to see them get another chance in another Mana game. And doing an original Mana game, I think would be pretty cool. So that's my idea. I'm throwing into the ether. Trials of Mana 2. Book it.
You know what? I think they're thinking about it. I think they're like, you know what? That one Trials of Mana game, it did pretty well for us, and it plays pretty well. Why not? So I highly doubt. I think it would ever be announced in this aforementioned Direct and coming out next year. Probably not. But I think they're thinking about it. So I think you're onto something, Ryan.
Because if they don't do that, I think they'll do like a remake of the first Mana game, like Adventures of Mana, which was on the Game Boy originally, which was Final Fantasy Legend here in North America. Or they might just, again, create their own Mana game and not tie to any of the previous ones even. But I think they're working on a Mana game. It's either that or I suspected before when we saw Valkyrie Elysium that maybe they're the development studio that's working on that game because we still don't have like the exact details of who's making that game at all. So it might actually
so
be
random.
Well. But yeah, so just throwing it out there. I think that's what's going on there. So before we get into the listener predictions, because we still got a few of those left, Garrett. What last set of predictions? Did you have any overflow predictions that we didn't cover? Because I know you had a couple.
Yeah, I mentioned some of these are just trolls. One of them is that Skyrim will be at least mentioned in the Xbox showcase at some point.
You know they will. They will mention it because there's that new version of Skyrim that's coming out, Garrett.
Goodness gracious, they just have to put it on everything.
Look, Bethesda needs a game that's out this year, okay? And it's Starfield, so you may as well release Skyrim again, okay?
Anniversary Edition 2.0. It's gonna be another $25 upgrade for mods.
Yeah,
probably. There you go. There you go, people. Another troll prediction: Ubisoft. Why haven't you released Child of Light 2? I think they just developed it and they're just keeping it out of spite right in front of me.
Oh, so Garrett, real quick, did you see the what character got added to Bloodstained Ritual of the Night this week?
Yes, I did. What is this?
That was so random.
Mocking me. They're mocking me. That's what they're doing. They put Aurora, the main character of Child of Light, into a what was
Bloodstained.
It? Bloodstained
Ritual of the Night, which is a Castlevania
spiritual. I could have predicted anything, not that. That's the most random collaboration I've ever seen
It's
in a
really
video
up
game.
there.
And I've seen some crazy stuff with Capcom. Capcom likes to snatch a lot of collaborations with Monster Hunter, but
Mhm.
this one takes the cake. Like this is too crazy. Oh my gosh. And then the last thing I said, and I think it's gonna probably be announced in Xbox Showcase. Well, no, not in the showcase. I think in the probably in the pre-show.
Mhm.
In the handful of Game Pass games they're like coming out that month or whatever. Tales of Arise
Okay.
will be announced as a Game Pass game
I think
at
that's a solid one.
some yeah, sometime that week. So
Yeah.
there you go. That's the rest of my
Yeah,
predictions.
that's where they tend to do kind of like the bulk kind of Game Pass
Yeah.
announcements. The ones that aren't like that don't warrant a full slot in like the main showcase is during the pre-show.
Yeah.
So I would imagine we probably see a lot of smaller things like that, including Tales of Rise, which I think like we've been saying that forever. I think it'll come to Game Pass
Yeah.
at some point this year. So as for me, the ones that I didn't get to, in fact, actually, I'll read this listener question one first because this ties into one that they talked about. So this comes to us from Awesome Dave 1337, who says, "I bring this up with every showcase or event, but Final Fantasy Pixel remasters for consoles." So one of
Oh
mine
my
was Final
goodness.
Fantasy Pixel remaster officially launching on consoles in a single package, and it's out right meow, and the right meow happens during the Nintendo Direct because
Oh goodness.
that's where they'll show this is the Nintendo Direct. That because Square Enix loves
Yeah, in your
Nintendo.
dreams.
You know that the Pixel remasters are coming to consoles, Garrett. Like you can't deny that it's happening.
When they're in trouble, they'll release it. When they're seriously in trouble, they'll put it in there.
Well, they were
but-
really just. It sounded like, according to Jeff Grubb, it sounded like they were really just waiting for Final Fantasy VI to come out. And Final Fantasy VI came out, a couple months ago. So I think it's time. But next up,
cool.
this next one had leaked as far as the Nvidia leak is concerned, but we don't know when it'll be announced. But I think it'll be announced over the next week. Tactics Ogre Rebirth from Square Enix.
Yes.
This is basically going to be a remake of Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together, which is essentially just like a turn-based. It's kind of like the Dealfold Chronicles in a lot of ways, where it's a real-time strategy or turn-based RPG essentially. But I said that's out in July is what I said going with the rest of the stuff I had about Square Enix, and I had two crazy ones. The one that I say every year, Parasite Eve 1 and 2 get PS1 remaster like treatment, like what we got with Chrono Cross or Final Fantasy 9 essentially. And those are outright meow as well. And then my last one, it's finally happening. The Xenosaga trilogy will come to Switch in Q1 of 2023. That was my last one. To round.
I love your predictions because it's like it's just Ryan's dreams trying to be forced into reality.
Pretty much.
I love it. No, I really do.
Except for again, some of them are grounded, like Tactics Ogre Rebirth and the Pixel remasters. I'm fairly certain if they don't get announced here, they will be announced before the end of the year. Like you can bank on that, I think. But the other two,
the final.
Sorry.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy Tactics is that that Nvidia leak, was that for the first one, not Tactics Ogre, right?
It was for a
one.
remake of Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, the original. Okay. I think that one could be not announced, but somewhere in the Nintendo Direct if it ever happens. So,
like it'll be we know that, and then the other one is the Final Fantasy 9 remake supposed to happen at some point too.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 9. Yeah.
But I don't think we see that this year. I think that's next year. Whereas I keep saying Parasite Eve 1 and 2 get PS1 remasters because again, Square Enix looked like they were wanting to port all of their PS1 RPGs to all the modern consoles, and they're just doing them kind of one at a time. And we got Chrono Cross over this year, and that's why I'm like, Parasite Eve 1 and 2 has to happen at some point. So that's why I threw it on there. But,
or they just put it on the PlayStation Plus and be like, let's call it a day.
Yeah, that's true.
There
That
we
might
go.
actually happen too, and there'll be the PAL versions, and it'll make me sad, Garrett, because we don't want
Probably.
those. But so those were my kind of out there predictions, and then I want to bring in our last two viewer submitted questions, which kind of tie into some of our RPGs that we haven't talked about yet that we might see this week. First one comes to us from Blaze Knight, who asks on the Discord, what SNES era Super Famicom exclusive RPG is Square Enix porting to Switch, and why is it Bahamut Lagoon? Well, the thing is, Blaze Knight, I don't think they're going to announce another one of those because we already have Live Alive coming out next month. And I think they're doing one of those a year, and you might see Bahamut Lagoon or the other one that I'm blanking on right now next year.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sounds good.
what do you think? Do you think Square Enix has any other exclusive RPGs coming to Switch?
No, probably not. The one that just came in and just went away and disappeared was that Dragon Quest 3D HD.
Yep.
It just here it is, and it's gone. Oh, we have Alive now. Now it's announcing and it's coming out this year. I'm like, what happened to the Dragon Quest one? And yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just gonna be in hiding. I think they're just gonna keep it in their pocket for a little bit, at least after Live Alive comes out, and
Yeah.
probably would just market the other one. It'll probably be next year.
Well, that's why, like, I think like any
Yeah.
Square Enix major releases or remakes are not coming this year. Like Dragon Quest 3,
Yeah.
3, I think is coming next fall, is what I'm guessing,
Yeah.
or next summer even.
That
Like, maybe
makes
it's in
sense.
the Live Alive spot next year.
Mhm.
But this year again, as long as like none of these get delayed, they've already got a pretty packed fall with big games because they got Dealfold Chronicles and Forspoken and Valkyrie Elysium. All
They
coming
got
out
some heavy
within
hitters, yeah.
like supposed to be coming out this fall essentially. So I don't know what else they're going to announce beyond that. Essentially, I think like anything that they announce is going to be for next year, or it's going to be smaller stuff like the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters is a smaller thing, or Tactics Ogre is a smaller thing, and then they kind of put it in a month that's by itself, or even Final Fantasy VII remake coming to Xbox, like that's like a smaller thing essentially. I think that's more of the Square Enix announcement we're going to get this year, unless it's again they're going to be announcing something for next year, like the Trials of Mana sequel that we know is coming, Garrett. So there you go.
Of course.
And then Yarden at Yarden Angel asked about a game that I'm surprised neither of us talked about, which is Sea of Stars release date or re-Riot. Who's with me? So that segues into the last kind of topic, which I consider games of interest that we haven't discussed yet. So we'll start with Sea of Stars, Garrett. Do we see Sea of Stars and get a release date for it by the time this week's over?
I don't think you'll get a release date for this one. I think you may see it in one of the smaller kind of I forgot what the other ones were, but there's some smaller indie showcases.
Well, I'm pretty sure this is a
peppered.
Devolver game, so this will probably be the Devolver
Oh,
showcase.
this Devolver game. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, Devolver Digital, sure. Yeah, I could totally see it being there. I just don't think you're gonna have a specific release date just yet.
I'm in the same camp as you. I think that it will be at the Devolver showcase. It might be at the Nintendo Direct, maybe, but it will be for sure at the Devolver showcase, and they will just give it 2022 still. Like they will probably announce the release date for that game like a month before it comes out. Kind of like they did with The Messenger, and kind of like they do with a lot of their games. Like Devolver just plays the release dates close to their chest for a lot of their stuff, and they wait until usually like the month before it comes out, usually before announcing a release date, because they usually launch on digital platforms first, and if they get a physical edition, they'll do it through limited run whenever, right? So and we didn't even get a physical edition announced through limited run today during their showcase, because they had the limited run showcase today. So
wow.
Who knows what happens with that. But speaking of who knows what happens with that we didn't mention yet, Garrett, what the heck is happening with Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp?
Oh man. Okay. Well, there's a lot of leaks coming out, and so it could possibly be dropped at the same, not probably exactly at the same point, but right around when a direct would happen. That could definitely be a possibility. But I'm not too sure at this point. It could be like either later this month. It can't be really next month because it's Xenoblade Chronicles 3 going on late July. And then you got Splatoon 3 early September. So my guess is this month or in the month of August is when they drop it. But what do you think? Advance Wars 1 and 2.
My prediction is we don't see this game until the January Direct next year. And because of what's going on in the world at this point. Like I don't think Nintendo even bothers touching this game, unfortunately. I wanted to mention it here because I know someone probably would have asked about that in the comments or on Discord. But I just don't like that game's done. We know it's done. They will release it whenever they feel the political climate is right for them to do so. And unfortunately right now it's just It's not that
Yeah,
time, unfortunately, which is why I don't think they talk about it at all this week, which makes me sad because I want to play that game. But
me too.
I don't think it comes. I don't think that game's coming out this year anymore. I think I'm almost at the point, Garrett, where I'm ready to drop it from fantasy, which I never thought I was going to
I,
say.
I think I dropped it. Wait, no, it wasn't me. I think it was another pick that had it. But yeah, I if I had that pick in my fantasy, I would have dropped it. Like as soon as they were announcing that they weren't doing it. And I agree with you. I think just the political climate and what the situation is. It's still going on.
Yep.
Like even though the news hasn't been talking about it, it's still going on. It just
Mhm.
marked its 100th day
Well, I
in
mean,
there.
I'm just gonna
So
throw it out there. I mean, I work
yeah,
for a news organization during my day
yeah,
job, and we have a story about it every single night on the news. So yeah,
yeah,
it's a,
it's still going.
it's
So
still a thing. So I don't think we see that anytime soon. And then the other one I wanted to bring up is the one that Garrett has no stake in, but I wanted to save it for last anyways. And that's Star Ocean: The Divine Force, which is also from
yeah,
Square Enix, and it's also apparently supposed to still be coming out this year too. So
yeah, right.
I think this, of all the Square Enix games that we know about that are confirmed for this year, that's the one I think that gets delayed. So not
Oh, it gets delayed. Okay,
and that's
cool.
why I was pretty confident in saying that Valkyrie Elysium and Geophode Chronicles will get release dates, and I didn't make Star Ocean part of that prediction because I think of those three games, I think that's the one that gets delayed till next year because its
I
trailer
agree
did
with
not have a very popular reception. It definitely had the worst
No.
reception of the three of those games, that's for sure. And I think that it's just probably not ready for prime time. So I think that one gets delayed. We're also hearing, rumblings that maybe Forspoken gets delayed again until next year,
Good.
which
Yeah.
which maybe opens things up as well, which is why I didn't want to talk about it here. But Star Ocean, I think, is the other one, is the Square Enix game of those three smaller ones that we know about for this year that gets delayed. So
Star Ocean's a weird one, man. Like the last one didn't really hit that hard, and then
Ooh.
they try to refresh some of their classics, and I I can't keep up because there's so many that are in PC, there are HD remasters, and there's some that are in PlayStation 4, some in
But the worst
Switch,
part is they
and
didn't even bring them all here. They only brought, like, they did Star Ocean 1 here, but they didn't bring the
you
second
know,
one. And the second one's the better of the best Star Ocean game. So I don't know why
my goodness,
why they left it in Japan only. Like, they put all that work into it
I
and
don't
they
know.
didn't even put it out here. It's silly. But
But yeah, and the latest Star Ocean wasn't great at all. Like everyone just had the most mediocre
yeah.
response
You mean
to
Integrity
that
and
game.
Faceless, the PlayStation 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a launch window game for PlayStation 4, and even then, like, no one bought that game because that came out in 2014, which I think will go down as probably one of the worst years for games
Yeah.
that we know about in the kind of the modern era of video games, anyways. But yeah, so there you go. I think we've covered off all of the games that we expect to see in the next week. Otherwise, Garrett, do you think covered everything off? Is there another game we haven't talked about yet that you think we'll see? I mean, especially now that we got the Pokemon news out of the way, like I don't think we're seeing that,
Hmm.
and I don't know what else we're gonna see beyond what we talked about.
No, I think we're good.
Cool,
In terms of role playing games, yeah, that's
cool.
all I could think of.
All right.
Hmm.
So then, last question I have for you before you go: how psyched are you for the fact that they're bringing back Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for the NES and the Game Boy to PlayStation 4 and Switch, Garrett?
What did you just say?
So Limited Run Games had a showcase this afternoon, as I mentioned, and one of the games that they announced that they're publishing, by the way, on Switch and PlayStation 4 is Bill and Ted's Excellent Retro Game Collection, and it's the NES and Game Boy versions of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So there you go, classic games. I mean, in the
Sure.
Limited Run games showcase, they classified them. They, not me. They classified them as RPGs. So I felt I needed to mention them here.
I'm glad that you did. Yeah, I'm rooting for them in the Bill and Ted whatever
God, those games are so
whatever
bad.
that is.
They're like Bill and Ted, based off the Bill and Ted movies, of course. Really bad games. Great movies. Bill and Ted movies are great, but man, those games are real bad. So
Have I seen these?
yeah,
Hold on, I'm checking.
They were made by LJN, the famous
Oh,
video game company back in the 80s and 90s on the NES. Although again, everyone always points out that LJN didn't make games; they just published games. But I like to lump them all under the umbrella.
Oh my goodness, that's Keanu Reeves. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
there's like
I've
dialogue trees and all kinds of crazy stuff in that game. You got to jump into trees in order to get like a CDs that you can give to like Thomas Edison because he wants to listen to some tunes. And then you gotta you go back to ancient Rome, and then you gotta go meet up with Julius Caesar, and he wants a Caesar salad. Come on, who needs anything more than that, Garrett?
That sounds so late 80s, early 90s. I could just feel it right now.
Good God,
Man, that's a vibe, man. Wow.
yeah.
I couldn't. Anyways,
I'm glad I
cool.
left it on that.
Agreed.
But anyways, we should probably wrap up the show. But before we go, Garrett plugs go.
You can follow me at Twitter at Bland Explosion. You can also find me on the Nintendo Shack part of the Play Some Video Games Podcast Network, where we are live every Thursday nights over at twitch.tv/PSVG. And we release on all the podcast services, including Google, Apple, Spotify, whatever you want to listen to. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You can find us on Twitter at Carpool Gaming, on YouTube at youtube.com/Carpool Gaming, and on podcast services around the globe. So, for Garrett Bland, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been level 51 of the RPG Cave, and we're out.
Bye-bye.